In today's Lions Talk Live, we're going to break down 5 different reasons why we think the Lions can go on the road and play against the Jets, pulling off a big victory. And let's be honest, both teams are going to come into this game fighting for their playoff proverbial lives. So this is a playoff game and the biggest game of the year. I know I've said that with every game the last 3 or 4, but let's be fair and let's be honest. They lose any of these last few games or this game, the Lions' chances to make the playoffs take a big hit, just like the Jets. But anyways, we're going to break down those 5 reasons why we think we can pull off the win. We're going to start with number 5, work our way up to number 1, talk about all that, and maybe just a little bit more in today's Lions Talk Live. Well, greetings and salutations to everybody out there in YouTube land. I'm your host, once again, Dan Thornton. I want to thank you all for taking time out of your busy days, enjoying a Friday, the day before the weekend begins. I'm sure many are at work, wherever you're doing today. I hope you're having a good one. And if you have not yet subscribed to Lions Talk Live, pretty please, with sugar on top, consider doing so. It takes you about a second and a half to go ahead and smash that subscribe button. Maybe leave a thumbs up. And even if you're enjoying the videos or have something you'd like to shout out in the comment section below, please consider doing so. Now, let's get into reason 5 on the way up to number 1 on the reasons why we believe the Lions will go into New York and beat the Jets. Reason number 5 on our list today is going to be the Detroit Lions running game. I'm sure most of you are aware the last few games, the Lions running game has not been as effective as it had been in other times in the season. Now, let's ask the question, why hasn't it been as effective? Well, roughly about 4 or 5 games ago, you saw a trend. Now, before the bye, we saw New England come up. They were putting 8 guys in the box, man across all the receivers on the outside, and saying, we're going to stop the run. We're going to blitz more than you're protecting and send people after the quarterback and leave all of our people in man-to-man principles on the outside receivers. At that time, the Lions were very beat up at receiver, so it was a highly effective strategy. That's also where you saw Goff's numbers go down, the offense go from number 1 in the league and 1 all-time in the first 4 games, down for about 3 games where we were not ourselves. But as players have gotten healthier again, you've seen teams have to go away from that a little bit more and more. Teams are still saying we're going to take away the running game and force Goff to beat us. And let's be very fair, Goff has done just that the last month or so. But the Lions running game is going to be tested here early and often in New York. Whether it's Jackson, Swift, or Williams running out of the backfield, one thing the Lions are going to have to do is establish that running game early and often. Goff is a beneficiary of a strong run game because he is exceptional in play action. I'm sure you're also aware that Goff is less than ideal on the road, at least so far this season. But the Lions, just focusing on the running game, have done very well in the last few weeks other than the number of yards they're putting up. So what the running game is going to have to do is we're going to have to force the Jets to keep that 8th guy in the box because it does free up the passing game. Symbiotic relationship. If they only keep 7 up, then the passing game should be slowed down a little bit. Yes, they have Sauce Gardner. Yes, we're talking about the running game. But the basics of this idea is this. If the Lions aren't running the ball well, their passing game is going to take a hit as well. So if the Lions want to go on the road in 38, 37, 39-degree weather and pull off an absolutely must-win game, this running game is going to have to produce somewhere around 4 to 4.5 yards a carry to keep that extra defender down so we can set up the play action and improve the passing game. The running game is going to be needed in a big, bad way this weekend. We're going to move on to reason number 4 as to why the Lions will have an ideal opportunity to win this weekend. We just talked about the Lions run game. Well, now let's talk about our run defense. At the start of the year, not so great. But over the last, say, 7 games, it's become pretty good for Detroit. And that run defense of ours is reason number 4. We're going to have to see the Lions shut down the Jets running game, just like the Jets are going to try to shut down ours. Both teams' offenses are ideal when the running game is producing, and then it helps with the passing game. When you force either one of these 2 offenses become one-dimensional, both defenses can get after the quarterback. The Jets are exceptional at it. Yes, they might not have Quentin Williams this weekend, And if that is the fact, because he has not practiced all week, it is Friday, it's about noon, so we don't have the official reports for their 4 hours. This video will already be up on the air, so I'll try to update you guys via the commentary and such once that information comes out. But if that guy can't play, that's a big plus for us. For the Lions, though, if we can shut down the running game of the Jets and force, it would appear Mike White is going to be the starting quarterback to be in more obvious passing situations, our defense could really tee off, especially since their O-line is not ideal. The Jets O-line is a little beat up, so if our defensive front can hold and maintain and keep them at bay on the running game, like we have with the Vikings and other teams as of late, then that's going to put poor Mike White in very unfavorable passing situations. And someone like James Houston, among other people, have been giving to the quarterback with regularity. I don't think the Jets are a great offensive team, so if they're forced into one-dimensional football, they're going to be in real trouble, and that favors us again. The more that we can take away that run and force them into passing, especially for a guy that's got massive rib injuries, this could end up helping Detroit in a big bad way. All right, reason number 3, why we think the Lions can go into the New York Football Jets and get a win. It's going to be the coaching staff. Think about it. Other than maybe, the last minute of the Buffalo Bills game in the first half and the second half, we've gone through about a 2-month stretch where you see the growth of all of our coaches, whether it's the offense, the defense, the head coach, whatever it may be. It seems like they've all matured, much like their younger players on this team, and not just the rookies, but the first-year and second-year players. This whole team, coaching and players, are developing. They're handling clock situations better, pressure situations better. They're performing under duress better. So I'm not going to go on forever with this one because I think you just would have to do too big a deep dive as to why. But I think as a whole, exactly what we talked about in Lions Talk Live at the start of the year. We wanted meaningful games late in the year to force younger players and coaches to get some real experience playing under duress. And that's what has been happening for virtually 2 months now. This game, win or lose, I'm just hoping it is a close game because, again, you're going to force both the players and coaches to have to think on the fly, make rapid decisions, and the correct decisions with pressure in their face. I believe the coaching staff will come through again. And it's a credit to Ben Johnson. We talked about earlier in the year, the coaching staff, going for it on 3rd and 1 and throwing bombs. That wasn't the case last week. They wanted to put the game away. They ran the same formation 3 times in that final drive with Panay coming across in motion. All the times they were setting it up. And when the game's on the line, those defenders are so focused on the running backs that they went after them, left Panay wide open. And I'm not going to say we're going to do that again, but the idea is that Ben Johnson learned from it. You can see what Aaron Glenn has learned, Dan Campbell has learned. Game management, clock management, all these things are coming together with a team on the rise, getting better from a schematic standpoint and a player personnel standpoint. So it's my belief that the game comes down to close plays here and there. Lions not only have the confidence, but they're starting to have the wherewithal how to close out these close games. Reason number 2 as to why I think the Lions are going to go on the road and pick up this win. It's going to be the wide receivers. Detroit is going to face perhaps their toughest defensive matchup of the entire season, whether it's prior to the season or into the close. This is one of the best secondaries in all of football. They are aided by a front 7 that can get after the quarterback. Yes, Quentin Williams might not be available for this game, and even if he is, let's be fair. If you haven't practiced because of a quad injury all week long, it took you out of the game against the Bills last weekend, how effective is he going to be? Even if they give him the needle, try to use something to help with the pain and the discomfort, it's still going to flare up the longer the game goes on, and it's still going to make him less and less effective. The other aspect is, are you really worried about the player's safety if he's not 100% or even 80% and you're putting him on the field trying to force an even worse injury to that in the effort to get this game? I get it's professional sports. I get you're trying to get into the playoffs. But I also get you don't want to permanently injure that thing or really injure that thing for the rest of the season. That's up to their coaching staff. Getting on with the receivers, though, we want to know if St. Brown and this band of receiving core are ready to step up and take on the top echelon corners in all the league. That's the situation we're going to face this weekend, and they need to pass that test. We talked about yesterday on the preview video, I think that there's some possibility, St. Brown is going to be matched up by Sauce Gardner all game long. The Jets typically seem to keep him on the left side, and he doesn't trail around with other teams. They're just going to simply say, hey, he's going to match up with whoever you put over on the left side, and we're going to negate this part of the field. That also aids the Jets with their blitzing schemes, because now they're able to drop a safety up on the line if you watch them, and they're sending that guy after the quarterback more often than not. So here we go. The Lions receiving core, whether it's Shark, Reynolds, St. Brown, or J-Mo, they have an opportunity to really say, hey, we are an upper echelon group. We are someone who can change a game as a group, and we're going to do it against you or anybody. If they can pull off what they've been doing the last 2 months against this secondary and defense, then I think the rest of the league really needs to look at Detroit as a legitimate threat, not just to make the playoffs, but to make a run in the playoffs. In the NFC, are you looking at anybody, if Detroit pulls off a big win here, and say, yeah, they can't be that team? The only team I could think of is Philadelphia. But sticking with the receivers, this is a statement opportunity for them. A statement opportunity to say, we are elite. Yes, I think the league is starting to wake up on St. Brown being elite, but now some of these other guys get an opportunity to make that statement as well. All right, and now let's move on to the top reason why I think the Lions are going to have an opportunity to win this game on the road, and that's going to be Jared Goff. If you've been watching any kind of media outlet for the last 2 weeks, Goff's rise throughout the media keeps jumping up. Yes, his numbers at Ford Field are gaudy, unbelievable. The amount of touchdowns to interceptions, it's off the chart. On the road, yes, I get it hasn't been great this year. Some of that, you could say, well, the majority of the Lions' road games came during that stretch when they weren't playing great. A lot of the receivers were out. Whatever you want to say, here's what we can say. If Goff really is the quarterback of the future for Detroit, if we're not going to draft another quarterback or go after somebody in free agency, then these final 4 games, starting with Sunday, need to be, putting the nail on the coffin for all the haters. If he can come out and play well, I'm not saying touchdowns, whatever, but don't turn the ball over. Complete a high percentage. Keep the chains moving. Who cares who scores the touchdowns, whether it's receivers or the running backs, but put points on the board and get a win in a hostile environment against a great defense. That's going to go a long way to silencing any critics of Jared Goff. Keeping on with Goff, and the number one reason, let's understand that, hey, when he came over from the Rams, he's probably emotionally not quite himself. He came into a Detroit team with who at wide receiver. Didn't play great last year until the end of the year when, Reynolds came on, and that helped free up St. Brown. Brown, the last few games went crazy. This year overall, other than that stretch where the offensive line was beat up and the receivers were beat up, Goff has played great. It doesn't mean he's been perfect, but he's played great. So, with that being said, if he can do that again here, and now next week going to face another great defense, then yes, it's time to say that Jared Goff is the leader of this team for the foreseeable future. Goff, his future is all his own. If he comes out and lays an egg and against the Jets, then that's going to bring more energy to the haters than it is for the people who love Goff. I don't care which way it goes, but I would say this. If he wants to really be the leader of this team from now in the next foreseeable few seasons, then this game may be the biggest of his career minus the Super Bowl game. He can make or break this team. He can make or break the season, and he can make or break his bank account with probably a contract extension coming up, I would say next year, if he does well this year and next. All right, well, that's going to do it for today's video. Sorry if I rambled on with a few different topics and went a little off base from time to time, but I think there's a lot of good things to like about the Lions going into this weekend. I think there's a lot of good things to like going into the end of the season. If Goff, St. Brown, the defense, the coaches, and all of them come together and pull this off, it will be a monumental win for the franchise. Perhaps one of its biggest wins in the last, let's say, 2 decades. So, with that being said, we're all going to have to sit around and watch and see what happens. Hopefully, it's a great outcome for us, because if we win this weekend and a couple teams lose, we'll only be a half game out of the playoff spot. Last night's loss for Seattle really helped us. If New York and Giants, somebody's got to win that game, somebody's got to lose that game. One of those two possibilities is going to happen, and we're going to be really on the cusp of being the 8th seed with 3 games remaining. The Panthers game would probably be the hardest to get a victory out of the rest of the season. But let's just focus on this. Remember, there is no Lions Talk Live on Saturdays, so we'll see you all Sunday after the game in another Lions Talk Live. Take care and have a great weekend. If you haven't yet subscribed, please consider doing so. See you all Sunday.